In a world where technology and faith often clash, a live interview between Pope Francis and Elon Musk takes an unexpected turn. What began as a debate on progress and humanity's future ends in a decision that shocks the world. Musk chooses to be baptized, redefining his legacy forever. The stage was set for what everyone anticipated would be a fiery exchange. On one side of the room, the head of the Catholic Church, Pope Francis, known for his humble yet powerful presence. On the other, Elon Musk, a tech mogul whose achievements seemed boundless. A crowd had gathered in the grand auditorium, eager to witness what was billed as a historical meeting of two polarizing figures, each representing two worlds often seen as opposites, faith and science. The discussion began as expected, with Musk speaking passionately about the future of humanity, the importance of space exploration, and the role of artificial intelligence in shaping the world. Pope Francis listened intently, his face a calm mask, offering a contrast to Musk's usual firebrand energy. The room was filled with anticipation as both men delved into topics of technology, the human condition, and their visions for the future. As the conversation unfolded, it quickly became clear that the clash wasn't so much between two opposing ideas, but rather an exploration of where these two ideologies intersect. The Pope's words were measured, calling for a balance between technological advancement and compassion, urging Musk to consider not just the future of humanity, but its soul. Musk, known for his often irreverent nature and forward-thinking views, responded with what seemed like a challenge to the Pope's philosophy. He spoke of the importance of logic and reason, questioning the role of faith in an age dominated by science. The air in the room crackled with tension as the two men, so different in their outlooks, attempted to bridge the gap between technology and spirituality. But something unexpected happened during the course of the interview. At first, it was a subtle shift, an almost imperceptible change in Musk's demeanor. As Pope Francis continued to speak about the value of faith in guiding humanity toward moral responsibility, Musk's usually sharp, analytical gaze softened. It wasn't that he had suddenly changed his views on science, but rather something about the Pope's words resonated with him on a deeper level, one that went beyond equations and spaceships. There was a moment, perhaps a fleeting one, where Musk's defenses seemed to drop. The debate became less about winning an argument and more about seeking understanding. The audience noticed it, the tension easing, the atmosphere becoming charged with a sense of something profound unfolding. Pope Francis, with the grace of a man who had devoted his life to bringing peace to troubled hearts, asked Musk a simple question. What is the purpose of all the progress if it does not serve the greater good of the soul? The question hung in the air. Musk, who had built his empire on innovation and technological progress, stood for a moment silent. For the first time, perhaps ever, the brilliant inventor seemed uncertain, not of his accomplishments, but of the road he had chosen, the road that led him to a place where, despite all his achievements, something felt empty. The audience sat in stunned silence. They were witnessing something far more than a political discussion. They were witnessing a confrontation of the human spirit itself. The Pope's words seemed to unlock something in Musk, a space he hadn't known he had, a longing for something beyond the artificial world he had built. And then, unexpectedly, Musk leaned forward, his voice softer, more reflective than it had been all evening. I've been so focused on changing the world with science, he admitted, that I haven't really thought about how to change myself. The words lingered in the air as the Pope nodded, his eyes filled with compassion. It was clear to everyone that something monumental was unfolding. Musk, the visionary who had once declared himself a staunch atheist, was beginning to reconsider his relationship with faith. What happened next left the audience in disbelief. Musk, with a quiet determination, turned to the Pope and made a decision that would change his life forever. In a moment of uncharacteristic humility, he asked, "Would you baptize me, Your Holiness?" The room was frozen in shock. The idea that Elon Musk, the man who had often mocked the constraints of religion, would make such a request was nothing short of earth-shattering. The Pope, taken aback by the gravity of the request, smiled softly. It was a smile that spoke not just of understanding, but of something much more profound, a recognition of the soul's journey, however unexpected it may be. In that moment, Musk's public image began to shift. The world that had watched him as a god of technology, a man who sought to push humanity beyond the stars, was now seeing a different side of him, a man in search of something deeper, something that transcended the boundaries of space and time. The interview ended, but the implications of what had just occurred were far from over. Behind closed doors, as the cameras were turned off and the audience dispersed, a plan was quietly set into motion. Musk's baptism was to take place in the heart of Rome, in one of the most sacred spaces in the world, the Vatican itself. But as the plans were made, the world couldn't help but wonder what had prompted this unexpected turn in Musk's life. Was it truly the conversation with Pope Francis, or was there something else, a personal loss perhaps, that had led him to seek something beyond his scientific pursuits? As news spread, people from all walks of life began to ask themselves the same questions. Could this powerful moment of change, this public act of humility, be the beginning of something greater? Would Musk's decision to embrace faith alongside his love for science leave a legacy that would reshape the way we view progress and spirituality? The world was about to find out. And what followed was a journey that no one, least of all Musk himself, could have anticipated. News of Elon Musk's request to be baptized by Pope Francis spread like wildfire, igniting a global firestorm. Headlines screamed of the tech mogul's unexpected turn toward faith, a man known for his bold disregard for traditional beliefs now stepping into the sacred waters of Christianity. Social media exploded with debate, some declaring the move a moment of profound personal growth, while others scoffed, labeling it a publicity stunt or the latest twist in Musk's ongoing drama of self-reinvention. To some, it seemed like an act of deep authenticity. To others, a bizarre spectacle. But amidst the noise, there was one question that remained unanswered. Why? What had driven Musk to make such a public and irreversible decision? The answer, Musk realized, was not as simple as anyone caused. For years, he had been the embodiment of Silicon Valley's relentless push toward progress, the mind behind Tesla's revolutionary electric vehicles, the genius propelling SpaceX toward Mars. Musk had built his career on bold decisions and visionary thinking, but his success had come at a price. He had always been on the edge of something, a man of towering achievements, but with an ever-present feeling of emptiness. He'd filled that emptiness with work, with innovation, with ideas of humanity's future. Yet something had always been missing, and now, as he stood on the cusp of making a decision that would change everything, Musk couldn't help but reflect on the path that had led him here. His recent personal loss, the sudden and tragic passing of his beloved brother, had shaken him to the core. In the days following the funeral, he found himself unable to focus, unable to throw himself into his work as he had always done. The stark reality of mortality, of the fleeting nature of human life, struck him in a way nothing had before. His brother had been everything to him, his closest confidant, someone who understood him in a way no one else ever could. And now he was gone. In those quiet, solitary moments, Musk had found himself questioning everything. The work he did, the technology he built, the way he approached life. All of it seemed, in some way, insufficient in the face of the grief he was carrying. For the first time in years, Musk began to search for something more, something beyond the scientific and technological accomplishments that had defined him. That search led him to the conversation with Pope Francis. It was a conversation Musk hadn't expected, a moment of unexpected clarity that cut through his usual defenses. The Pope had spoken of faith, but more than that, he had spoken of humanity's responsibility to seek truth, to care for the soul as much as the body. There had been something in the way the Pope had phrased his words, something in the compassion that had radiated from him, that struck Musk deeply. It wasn't about abandoning science or technology, it was about finding balance, about realizing that progress could not come at the expense of something so essential to the human experience, spiritual growth. As Musk prepared for the baptism, the weight of his decision felt both heavy and liberating. He had made it clear that his belief in science was unwavering, that his commitment to space exploration and technological advancement was as strong as ever. But something had shifted within him, a realization that perhaps true progress didn't lie solely in the realms of space or machines, but in the soul. And if there was one thing Musk had learned from the pain of his recent loss, it was that without a soul to guide you, no amount of technological achievement could fill the void. The baptism would take place in the heart of the Vatican, at St. Peter's Basilica, a place that symbolized the intersection of faith and history. As he arrived at the church, the air was thick with anticipation. The event had attracted global attention, with people from all walks of life tuning in to witness the moment. Cameras lined the corridors, capturing every movement, every shift in Musk's demeanor. There, in the shadow of centuries of religious tradition, Musk felt a strange sense of calm. For the first time in a long while, he wasn't thinking about the next big project, the next breakthrough, the next step in humanity's progress. He wasn't thinking about Mars or the next AI model or even his latest business venture. All of those things which had once been the center of his universe seemed insignificant in comparison to what was about to happen. Pope Francis greeted him warmly, his gentle smile a stark contrast to the ferocity of the media circus that surrounded them. The Pope didn't speak much, instead guiding Musk through the ceremony with a quiet reverence. As the water touched Musk's forehead, there was an almost palpable shift, a deep, transformative moment that rippled outwards beyond the walls of the church into the hearts of millions watching. It was a symbolic gesture, one that transcended the act of baptism itself. For Musk, it represented more than just a religious ritual. It was the culmination of a personal journey, a decision to embrace something greater than the sum of his accomplishments. It was an acknowledgement that, despite all his success, there were still mysteries of the universe, of the human heart, that could not be solved by technology alone. As the ceremony concluded, Musk stood silent, eyes closed for a moment, as he absorbed the significance of what had just transpired. His face was uncharacteristically soft, the mask of the indomitable entrepreneur gone. He appeared reflective, humbled even. The cameras continued to flash, but in that moment it was clear to everyone watching that something profound had happened, something far beyond a simple media event. And then Musk spoke. His words were not those of a man who had just been baptized into the faith, but rather the words of someone who had come to terms with his own limitations. He spoke of the need for balance between the advancements of science and the deeper questions of existence that transcended the material world. He spoke of his ongoing search for truth, not just in the lab, but in the depths of the soul. For the first time, Musk seemed at peace with his own contradictions. He was both a visionary, pushing the boundaries of human knowledge, and a man who sought understanding beyond the scope of his work. His decision to embrace faith alongside his relentless pursuit of progress was not a rejection of science, it was an acceptance of the complexity of the human experience. The audience, which had gathered in anticipation of a spectacle, found themselves moved by the sincerity of his words. It wasn't just the tech mogul they had seen on the screen. It was a man, raw and vulnerable, grappling with the same questions that many of them had faced at some point in their own lives. As Musk concluded his speech, there was a moment of silence, one that felt like a collective exhale from the audience. In that moment, the world had witnessed something transformative, not just the baptism of a man, but the beginning of a journey, a personal evolution that had the potential to change the way people saw the intersection of technology and spirituality. What Musk had done was not just surprising, it was profound, and the questions now swirling around his decision were only just beginning. What would this moment mean for the future of science and religion? Could Musk's decision to embrace faith inspire others to reconsider their own beliefs, to seek a balance between progress and spirituality? The world was watching, waiting for the next chapter in this unexpected journey. Musk had taken the first step, but it was clear that the path ahead would be anything but predictable. The day after the baptism, the media was still buzzing with stories about the event, and every outlet seemed to have its own interpretation of what had just transpired. To some, Musk's decision to embrace faith was an act of profound personal growth, the tech billionaire finally acknowledging the limitations of science alone in addressing life's most existential questions. To others, it was an elaborate publicity stunt, a calculated move to soften his often controversial persona and align himself with an audience that had long seen him as too cold, too unrelatable, too distant. But for Musk, the morning after the baptism was the beginning of something that couldn't be neatly packaged or labeled. The ceremony had been a moment of profound personal reflection, but what followed was not a simple path of self-acceptance. The questions, the doubts, the internal confrontations, all of them raged in Musk's mind like a storm. Despite the catharsis of the ceremony, he wasn't sure where this path would lead him. The decision to embrace faith had not come easily, and now that he had made it, the implications were far-reaching, not just for his personal life, but for the future of his companies, his work, and even how the world saw him. His next public appearance was eagerly anticipated. The world was waiting for Musk to make a statement, to clarify what this new chapter meant for his life and his legacy. His advisors had urged him to keep a low profile for a while to let the dust settle. But Musk, as always, was restless. His mind always churning with new ideas, new thoughts, and new questions. It was during one of his late-night reflections, as he sat alone in his office, overlooking the lights of Silicon Valley, that it hit him. The baptism was not the end of his search for meaning. It was only the beginning. It wasn't just about incorporating faith into his worldview, but about integrating it into everything he did, everything he stood for. Could the fields of science and technology, the very domains he had so passionately championed, be more than just instruments of progress? Could they serve a higher purpose, a deeper moral goal? Could faith and innovation coexist in a world that seemed so fixated on cold empirical data? In the hours following his revelation, Musk contacted Pope Francis. He requested a private audience, one that would allow him to discuss his evolving thoughts about the intersection of science and faith. The conversation, he felt, needed to go beyond the surface level. It was no longer just about personal salvation or religious rituals. It was about a larger conversation, one that could shape the future of technology, the future of humanity itself. Pope Francis, ever the gracious and patient listener, agreed. He recognized the sincerity in Musk's request, knowing that this was no mere publicity stunt. This was a man grappling with the very nature of existence, trying to reconcile the relentless forward march of technology with the timeless questions of the human soul. And the Pope, as always, was open to guiding Musk through that conversation, whatever form it took. Their private meeting took place at the Vatican, in a small, quiet chapel. It was here, away from the glare of the public eye, that the two men engaged in a deep and thought-provoking conversation. They discussed everything: the ethical implications of artificial intelligence, the role of technology in shaping human relationships, the potential of space exploration to either uplift or dehumanize mankind. But beneath the intellectual discussions, there was something else, a sense of shared humanity, a recognition that both men, despite their vastly different paths, were ultimately searching for the same thing: truth. Musk, in his usual probing way, asked the Pope difficult questions, ones that challenged the very foundation of religious belief. How could faith and reason coexist in a world where science could provide answers to almost any question? Was there room for the soul in a world increasingly dominated by artificial intelligence and automation? And perhaps most crucially, could the mission to reach Mars, to expand humanity beyond Earth, truly have meaning if humanity itself had lost its moral compass? Pope Francis listened, then spoke slowly, as if weighing each word. Science and faith are not enemies, Elon. They are companions on the same journey. One seeks to understand the how of the world, the other seeks to understand the why. Both are essential, but without compassion, without a sense of moral responsibility, even the greatest of human achievements can become hollow. The conversation stretched deep into the night, and by the time it ended, Musk felt something inside him begin to shift again. It was as though the seeds of a new vision were being planted in his mind, a vision where faith was not a distant, abstract concept, but a living, breathing force that could guide humanity's future. Perhaps he realized the answer wasn't to pit technology against faith, but to unite them in a way that could elevate both. When Musk emerged from the meeting, he was different. His expression was focused, but there was a softness to it, a peace that hadn't been there before. The tension that had marked his every move in the days following his baptism had dissipated, replaced by a sense of clarity. It was as though he had found the missing piece of a puzzle he hadn't even known he was solving. The media, of course, was waiting for him. The moment Musk stepped out of the Vatican, cameras swarmed, eager to capture his thoughts. They had all expected him to announce his next big project, to make bold proclamations about space, about technology, about the future. But instead, Musk took a step forward, his eyes focused, his voice calm, and shared something far more personal than anyone had anticipated. The future of humanity, he said, his words measured but resolute, is not just about reaching Mars or creating the next big technological breakthrough. It's about finding meaning. It's about ensuring that the advancements we make as a species are in service of something greater than ourselves. We must balance our progress with compassion, our innovations with ethics. Otherwise, all our achievements will amount to nothing. The crowd fell silent. For a moment, Musk wasn't the tech mogul they all knew. He wasn't the eccentric genius who spoke in grandiose terms about Mars and AI. He was a man, vulnerable yet resolute, standing at the intersection of two worlds, one of science and one of faith. What followed was nothing short of a public reckoning. In the days that came, Musk's words ignited debates on every platform, from academic journals to social media forums, from religious discussions to scientific think tanks. Was Musk, the self-proclaimed Iron Man of Silicon Valley, really shifting his stance on technology? Was this the beginning of a new era where humanity could no longer afford to separate the advancement of knowledge from the moral framework that had guided humanity for centuries? The questions kept coming. Critics emerged from every corner. Some accused him of abandoning his core principles in a desperate attempt to reinvent himself. Others believed it was a calculated move to make him appear more human in the eyes of a public that had often viewed him as a cold, calculating figure. But there were also those who saw the potential for a real, meaningful shift in Musk's worldview, one that could reverberate across the tech industry and beyond. Could his words be the spark that inspired a new generation of innovators to consider the ethical implications of their work? Could Musk's growing spirituality lead to a paradigm shift in how the world viewed science, technology, and the human condition? The questions weren't easy, but Musk, for the first time in a long while, was ready to face them. And what came next, he knew, would change everything. It was no longer just about building rockets or cars. It was about building a future that honored the complexity of the human spirit. And that, he realized, was a journey he could no longer walk alone. As the weeks passed following his powerful speech outside the Vatican, the world began to take a closer look at Elon Musk. The media, the skeptics, the analysts, they all began to realize that something truly transformative had occurred. Musk, who had once been the embodiment of Silicon Valley's relentless drive for progress at any cost, was now speaking about the need for balance between human ingenuity and the moral compass that had guided civilizations for centuries. It was a shift that had caught everyone off guard, not just in the business world, but in every corner of society. Musk, however, knew that words alone wouldn't be enough. The true test of his newfound vision would be in his actions. He began to engage more deeply with leaders from diverse fields, scientists, ethicists, religious figures, and philosophers, looking for ways to integrate faith, compassion, and responsibility into the very core of his ventures. His companies were still pushing the envelope in their respective industries, but now there was an added layer to his work. His focus wasn't just on the technical aspects of innovation. He now saw his companies as potential instruments for human flourishing, tools that could elevate the human condition rather than just advance it. One of the most profound changes occurred within Tesla. Under Musk's leadership, Tesla, the once fiercely independent tech giant, began to emphasize not just innovation in electric vehicles, but also the impact those vehicles would have on the environment and society. Musk made it a point to shift the narrative from merely reducing carbon footprints to actively improving the lives of people around the world. The company introduced programs that aimed to address global inequality through renewable energy solutions, with Musk emphasizing that it wasn't just about making electric cars. It was about making a better, more sustainable world for future generations. But it wasn't just in business that Musk's transformation was felt. His personal life, too, began to reflect his changing outlook. His interactions with those around him, his family, friends, and even employees, were marked by a new sense of humility and empathy. Where once his focus had been solely on the bottom line, now he took time to listen, to understand, and to connect on a deeper, more human level. The relationship he had with his children deepened as well. Musk, who had often been criticized for his strained personal connections and work-life balance, began to prioritize time with them. He would take long walks, discussing the world with them, not just in terms of technology and innovation, but in terms of their hopes, their dreams, and their values. For the first time in years, Musk felt that he was truly living, not just surviving, not just striving toward the next big achievement, but truly engaging with life's most important questions. Pope Francis, who had become a quiet confidant and advisor during this time, continued to guide Musk in his journey. Their conversations, which had once been limited to high-level discussions about the intersection of faith and technology, now dove deeper into the human experience. They spoke about the role of suffering, the importance of community, and the need for spirituality in a rapidly changing world. Pope Francis's wisdom and grace served as a steady anchor for Musk, whose mind, as brilliant as it was, still required grounding. Despite the personal and professional transformations, Musk continued to face criticism. There were still many who saw his embrace of faith as nothing more than a calculated move to repair his public image, a way to polish a persona that had grown increasingly divisive. Others thought it was simply a passing phase, a momentary lapse in his otherwise unwavering commitment to technological progress. But Musk knew that this was no passing phase. This was the beginning of a new chapter in his life, a chapter that wasn't just about what he could achieve with his mind, but about what he could contribute to the world with his heart. He was no longer interested in being seen as the infallible genius or the unrelatable billionaire. He wanted to be seen as a man who was still capable of learning, of growing, of seeking answers to questions that had long eluded him. And more than anything, he wanted to leave a legacy that wasn't just defined by the technology he created, but by the humanity he had helped to preserve. The culmination of this new vision was realized in a grand initiative Musk launched in collaboration with several global organizations. It was called the Human Legacy Project, a multifaceted effort that sought to combine cutting-edge technology with spiritual and ethical guidance. The initiative aimed to address the most pressing challenges of the human race: climate change, global poverty, health disparities, and the responsible use of AI. Musk's hope was that, through this project, humanity could not only survive but thrive. By merging the best of science with the best of spirituality, the project was heralded as a groundbreaking initiative, not just in terms of its scope, but in terms of the values it espoused. Musk made it clear that the ultimate goal wasn't just technological progress, it was human progress. And that meant building a future where science and faith were no longer seen as opposing forces, but as two sides of the same coin. In the years that followed, Musk's influence continued to grow, but it was no longer just about his technological achievements. People looked at him now and saw someone who had embraced the fullness of the human experience. He was no longer just the billionaire entrepreneur who would do anything to get to Mars. He was the man who had learned through deep personal loss and reflection that the most important journey wasn't the one to the stars, it was the one within. And so, as the years passed, Musk's legacy became something far more profound than anyone could have imagined. It wasn't just the technology he had developed or the industries he had revolutionized. It was the way he had helped humanity come to terms with its own soul. In a world that had often prioritized innovation over introspection, he had made a case for the importance of balance. In a world that had often dismissed spirituality in favor of science, he had shown that the two could coexist in harmony. Musk's final speech, delivered years later at the launch of a new sustainable city built as part of the Human Legacy Project, encapsulated the transformation that had taken place within him. Standing before a crowd of thousands, Musk spoke not of rockets or electric cars, but of love, faith, and the responsibility humanity had to one another and to the planet. "We are not just a collection of data points," he said, his voice steady, "but emotional. We are human beings, with hearts, with souls, with the capacity for love and kindness. Our greatest achievements will not be the ones we make in laboratories or in the stars. They will be the ones we make here, together, as a community. Let us remember that we are not defined by what we build, but by how we care for each other." The crowd erupted in applause, not just for Musk's words, but for the man who had once seemed so distant and unreachable, now standing before them as a symbol of the future they all hoped to create. A future where faith and technology didn't just coexist, they thrived together. And with that, the world knew that Musk had fulfilled his ultimate goal, not just to change the world, but to help humanity understand itself. The journey that had begun with a single decision had become a movement that transcended his technological legacy. It had become a testament to the power of growth, humility, and the uncharted possibilities that await when we are willing to confront the deeper questions of life. Musk had found his path, and in doing so, had illuminated the way for others to follow.